All right, let's think about if it's fair for each case. So you pay. Okay, so I'm going to use a ratio because we already learned this. Okay, so let me just put $184 per 2. And you pay $266 per 3. Do you think this is going to be fair? How can I compare this? How do you know if this is fair? Lesson 1, we learn about unit rate. If you think about how much you pay per one ticket for each case, then if it's exactly same, then you can say, oh, it's fair. If it's not same, if one of them is bigger than the other, then you might say it's not fair, right? So now I'm going to divide it by 2, So it's going to be $92 for the first case. So it's going to be $92 per one ticket. This is much more makes sense than how much tickets you can buy if you have $1, right? So that's why I put tickets under tickets in the denominator. What about 266 per 3 tickets? I know you guys can divide it, but I'm going to show you how to divide it. So 3, how many 3s are going to 26? It's 8. It's almost 9, but it's not. It's less than 27. So 24 and 26. How many? It's going to be 8 again. 24 and 20. How many? And you have to put a decimal. And 7, no. 6, 3 times 6, 18. So 6, 18. Even though you don't finish this, you already know that it's not going to be 92. It's going to be what? It's going to be 88 point something. 88 point something per one ticket, right? Is it fair? Not fair. Both have, they don't have same unit price. So do you think this is going to be a proportion? Are they equivalent? It's not equivalent. So I have to put a little bar between this here. This means that not equals. Okay, not equal. So this is not proportion. So you may add not P because it's not a proportion. What about 75 points for answering 15 questions correctly? How many points per one question actually? So you may do 75 over 15 and 70 to 14. So now let's see if it's going to be proportion or not proportion. If it's equal, then it's a proportion. If it's not equal, it's not proportion. All right, 75 divided by 15, 75 to 15, you may divide it by 15, you may divide it by 15. So it's going to be 5 over 1. What about this? I'm going to divide it by 2 and 2, so it's going to be 35 over 7, and you may divide it by 7 again, 7, so it's going to be 5 over 1. They do have same value. So is it going to be proportional or not proportional? It is going to be proportional, so it is a proportion. So now I can say 75 to 15 and 70 to 14, they form a proportion, or they are proportional. The points and the number of questions are proportional, the total points and the number of questions. What about 24 football cards for 15 baseball cards? So now I'm going to put football cards on the top and baseball cards. So it's going to be 24 to 15. It's just a ratio, so you just follow the order that you choose. But you can put baseball cards on the top. It's up to you, but you have to keep that order for the second case. So it's going to be 20 to 32. So let's see if these two are proportional. So 24 divided by 3 divided by 3, because we need simplest form. 8 over 5. What about here? Divided by 4 divided by 4. You can start divided by 2, okay? Take your time. 5 by 8. So what do you think? 8 to 5 and 5 to 8. Do you think they're equal? They're not equal. So it's not fair and it's not proportional. So when you simplified two ratios, it should be equivalent, then you can call them proportion. Simple. So now you guys, it looks familiar, right? We have a ratio and a ratio. When they're equivalent, right, we call them proportion. This is what we do. And when you in the proportion, you may use this strategy because it's really, really important. And it's really easy. If you know this, you can save a lot of time. It's called cross product or cross multiplication. Which means when you multiply like the number of the denominator and the numerator on the other side, it is going to be the same as the other denominator and the numerator's product. So for example, there's an example here. So 2/3, 4/6. We know that they're proportion, right? Because 2/3 and 4/6, if you simplify this, it's going to be this, right? If I multiply 3 and like cross, you multiply cross 3 and 4, what is it? 12. What about 2 and 6? It's also 12. It only happens when it is equal, okay? So let's practice a little bit. All right, number 5. So 1/3, 7/21. I know you guys already know that 1/3 and 7/21, they're proportional because 7/21 is 1/3, right? So they are equivalent, so it's a proportional, right? This is number 5. But if you use the cross multiplication method, I would do, you may just multiply these two, which is 21, and these two, 1 times 21. If they are equal, if the products are equal, then you may just say, oh, it's a proportion. You don't need to simplify it. So we have two strategies: simplify, and you may do cross multiplication. So choose either way. That's fine. You don't need to do both, okay? So now let's do number 8. So I'm going to multiply these two, which is 2 and 16. What is it? 32, right? So what about the other pair, 5 and 40? I'm going to multiply 5 and 40. I'm not sure if it's proportion or not proportion. So 5 and 40, it's going to be 200. They are not equal. If they're not equal, they're not proportion. If these twos are proportion, the product should be exactly same. So it's not proportion. If you don't trust Miss Hong, then you may just try to simplify it by yourself. This is already simplified. This one divided by 4 divided by 4. So it's going to be 10 over 4. You can divide it by 2 divided by 2, 5 over 2. 2/5 and 5/2 is not equal. It's not proportion, right? So you may use either way, cross product or simplifying. Let's do 6. All right, so now I'm going to do cross multiplication, which is 30. 5 times 6 is 30. 1 times 30 is 30. Equivalent? Yes. So it is proportion. The first method, you can compare unit rates for each case. I think it sounds more makes sense to find how many minutes to take for one lap, for each lap. So I just changed it. And I just found like for one lap for the first case, it only take 0.6 minutes. So now let's find the second case. If you calculate it, it takes 0.75 minutes. So now you say, oh, those are not equal, so it's not proportional, right? So now there's another method. Let's use cross product property. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply these 4 and 12 and the numbers in the green. So if it's equivalent, if it's same, then you can say it's proportion. It's proportional.